Welcome to the Black on Black Education Podcast, where we interview the most brilliant minds
and connected hearts to discuss our shared passion for the transformation,
the revolution,
reimagining,
and recreation
of education in the Black community.
My name is Eva Loren Jean Charles, founder of Black on Black Education and New York City high school teacher.
And I'm Jamal Thomas, her partner and dad, education enthusiast.
And we're your hosts. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe.
And most importantly, to enjoy the episode.
Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Black on Black Education Podcast. We are extraordinarily grateful to have yet another guest that we get to ask, who are you, what do you do, and why do you do it?
Well, hi, I am Nicole Lynn Lewis. I'm the founder and CEO of Generation Hope, a nonprofit organization. I'm also the author of the book Pregnant Girl. And every day I have the honor and privilege of advocating for and with parenting college students all across the country, and also walking alongside young parents, teen mothers and fathers who are working towards their college degrees. So doing both the direct service work and the national kind of advocacy and systems change work. And I do it because it's very close to my heart. I have lived the mission of this organization, so I know how important it is for us to be making sure that young parents and parenting college students of any age have what they need and deserve to thrive.
Okay. So we're definitely going to get more into Generation Hope, and you know what you're doing is clearly very important, and it's actually one of those pieces of the overall education space, as large as it is and as much time as I spend on it. I don't think I've ever considered it right from the positioning that you have, so or that you guys are working on. So we'll get to Generation Hope, but you know, let's first go to the book, where you know NPR said you guys said it was one of the top books of all of 2021, and you did this. You're running a nonprofit. You're a mom. You know, family. Like, how did you get the time to put together an amazing book as well? Tell us about that journey of becoming an author.
Well, I actually started writing Pregnant Girl 13 years before it actually became a reality. So I graduated from college and started talking to coworkers about my own journey of being a young mom in college. And people would say to me, wait a minute, like that is not a story that you hear about. You don't hear success stories. You don't hear stories of overcoming as a teen parent, and you need to tell your story. And I was a writer. I've always loved writing ever since I was a little kid, and wrote all the way through college. So it was something that came, fairly easy to me in terms of putting pen to paper. And so I wrote the first, like a third of the book that is out there today. And I took it to publishers and literary agents, and I said, I want to share my story. And all the doors were slammed in my face. People told me, no one wants to hear about teen moms being successful. You don't have a platform, all sorts of things. And so I shelved the project. And for a long time, I just, kind of said, well, that's not something that is meant to be. And in the meantime, I launched a whole nonprofit organization. And I was in a training in 2018, and it was all about how do you scale nonprofits? How do you grow them? And yes, one method for growing a nonprofit is the brick and mortar, like let's build a new Generation Hope in another city. But another is how do you inspire people to do the work? And a vehicle for that is a book. And I thought, wait a minute, I have at least a draft of a book on the shelf. I dusted it off. By now, I had more connections to people. My network was bigger. And I thought, let me try to get this out, again, let me try to get this published. And thankfully, through an introduction from one of my board members, I met my literary agent who then was able to shop the book around and was able to bring it to Beacon Press, which is a social justice publisher, and they've published James Baldwin and like all of these incredible people. And it just fit. It was just, they understood my vision for the book. They understood what we were trying to achieve, and the work that we do at Generation Hope. And so, of course, 13 years after you write something, you hate everything that you wrote. You look back and you're like, I hate all of this. But it did give me a structure and a starting point for getting the manuscript written. And so for about, I think, 6 months, I was working on a first draft of the book and taking that third and really getting it to a certain place and then having to write the rest, the other 2/3 from scratch. And it was a crazy time because the world was also falling apart. It was when COVID-19 was starting to unfold. So we had kids home. And thank God for my husband and us being able to be a tag team, because he was able to, say, let mommy write, she's up in the room, let her write. And he
Yeah.
kept them at bay. But it's hard because then I was also, running a nonprofit organization at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, I love it, right? I'm sitting here, the author part of my brain is like, Eva, just start writing the book. And it's like, yeah, I'm
Yes, you
inspired for
can do
15
it.
minutes.
You can
But
do
yes, I need
it.
to do it. And then also the teacher side of me is also lit up right now, right? Because I teach in the South Bronx. We had a student cross the stage last year with a baby, right? My
Mhm.
sister had a baby, got her associate's degree through that
Awesome.
process, right? So like you're speaking to people who I deeply care about, and knowing that
Mhm.
there is somewhere out there that is providing support for them is absolutely incredible. And so we love like we know where the motivation comes from, right? You experience this, you've worked with folks who've experienced this, and you recognize that there is the ability to be successful in this space. But talk a little bit more about the origin of the creation and implementation process of developing a nonprofit that's doing this sort of work. What connections did you have to make? What conversations were you having to really amplify this as a need, and then make it possible?
Yeah, I mean, I love the connections, the personal connections that you have, and I think it's so consistent with what I see when I talk to people about Generation Hope. I always have people come up to me from the audience and say, "This is my story," or "This was my cousin's story," or "My daughter, my best friend." So many people have connections to teen pregnancy or parenting while in school, or wanting to parent through school, and yet it's something that we just don't talk about. So I appreciate those personal stories and connections. So I started Generation Hope in 2010, and it was around the time, that the economy was not in a good place. I was told it was the worst time to start a nonprofit organization.
Mm,
So we were coming out of a recession, the housing crisis, all of the things, the unemployment rates. And I had this vision for this organization. I was in the DC region, and I had graduated from college and shifted, and started working in the private sector.
mm,
And then I quickly shifted into the nonprofit sector and just fell in love with nonprofit work and social justice work. And I knew that I wanted to do something. I had it on my heart to do something around helping other teen parents experience success, but I wasn't quite sure what it would look like. And I was consulting with a nonprofit organization working in reproductive health. And I had a new baby. So my husband and I, we had our two girls, and it was a really tough time because the economy was tanking. My consulting contract was tanking with it. And my husband and I were having a real like come to Jesus conversation around the table, where he was like, "What do you feel like God is calling you to do?" And
mm.
I said, "Help you pay these bills." And he said, "No, like for real, what is God calling you to do?" And I prayed about it. I went to bed and I wrote the business plan for Generation Hope the next day. It just
Mm,
really like flowed through me so naturally, so organically. And what I knew was that being in the DC region, that we were grappling with high rates of teen pregnancy. We were grappling with child poverty and overall poverty, the racial wealth gap, all sorts of things that were really directly linked to how do young families thrive and how do they fare right in life. And yet there was no nonprofit that was dedicated to this work of teen parents getting their degrees, and very few nonprofits across the country that were talking about this or working on it. And so I created it because I felt it needed to exist in the world. And
mm.
it wasn't easy because teen parents are a highly stigmatized population. I mean, when you talk about teen pregnancy, people have really strong feelings about that issue, and they're often negative. The sentiment is, you made your bed, you fill in the blank, right? You created your situation. You have to deal with what comes with it. And
Yeah.
so going out and advocating for a population that is so marginalized and stigmatized, and people have such negative feelings about, wasn't easy. And to fundraise around that and to get people to understand the importance of investing in these families. But there are some universal things like that people understand, which is a love between a parent and a child, the importance of family, the importance of education. And so those are the things that we really emphasize and stressed. And I think that proved to be an effective way to unify people around the mission and to educate people. I tell my team too, our role is to serve our families and to educate people, the community about why it's so important. But it was a lot of building brick by brick, getting things donated in the beginning. I didn't draw a salary for the first 4 years of running the organization. So a ton of sacrifice. And now we're just doing amazing. I'm so proud of what we've been able to build.
It's can't give you enough flowers, because what winds up happening is that each of these people who, I looked on your website and I think it 300 kids or 200, I forgot what the exact number was, but this is that person that that you helped. I love how you guys communicate around. It's not just services for that person, it's also services for their child, which creates this cyclical connection where perhaps now their child is approaching education in a different way than they might have otherwise approached education. The fact that you're also serving young men who might otherwise say, you know what, I'm out of here, I'm going to college, and they may forget about their responsibilities as a father. So you're changing these individual lives, which in turn changes the family's life, which in turn changes our community. So I love the work. I kind of actually want to hear some success stories, like what I mean. Tell us about obviously I guess you can't use their names or anybody. Maybe you can. I don't know how that works. But share with us, what I mean, somebody who maybe it was tough in the beginning, but on the other side of it, there's something that put the smile you have on your face now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm smiling too, because there's so many success stories. It's hard for me to choose. One that feels very close right now is, speaking of teen fathers, we have a young man who came into our program, really a single dad raising his daughter. He really didn't consider going to college. He's from one of the most kind of poverty stricken parts of DC. And in his community, going to college was very rare for anyone, but especially for Black men. And he didn't see that as something in his future. He finished high school and really was not looking to apply anywhere. Thankfully, he was connected to another nonprofit organization that encouraged him to really think about going to college and helped him with his application. He enrolled at the University of the District of Columbia Community College, so the DC's community college. And about that time, we met him through a college and career fair that was sponsored by that nonprofit organization. And we were able to really walk with him in his college journey through a lot of difficult times. He lost many friends to gun violence during his time in the program. He was dealing with homelessness at different points in his college career, on top of caring for his daughter, making sure she had what she needed. Just the emotional toll of the loss, the grief that comes with, that experience. We were so fortunate to bring on a mental health counselor onto our staff who was able to work with him. All of our Hope coaches on our team are trauma informed, and we do a lot around race equity and systemic racism and oppression to help people to understand the weight of all of these things for our scholars and the systems that are working against them. He was able to earn his associate's degree and then transferred to Howard University through our program and with our support. Yeah, and we have just this amazing picture of him on graduation day at Howard, literally in tears, embracing his daughter. And it's one of my favorite pictures. I think it captures that moment that we want for every one of our students, which is, it's of course the milestone of graduating, but it's what it represents for that family. It's a trajectory, right? It's just a total pivot in terms of what can happen for that family. And as you all were just saying, what happens for that little one. His daughter now sees her father as a college graduate. That totally influences her own career and academic success later in life. And so just wonderful. And his name is Joseph Youssef. And he is also, we just voted him on to our board of directors. And so he is our member of our board of directors literally last week. And I told him, you are now my boss, because that's the way it works, you know? So, but he also now works for Howard University, and we're so very proud of him.
Big shout. Big shout.
I am.
Share that picture. We'll add it to the to the video portion of the podcast.
Yeah, I'm a very emotional person. I was sitting here like, pull it together. We are on a podcast. I love hearing stories like that, and not just because we have to amplify like the one person that does this or the one person that, but because it represents what we know that our people can do when they have the resources, they have the support, they have the love, they have the care. Like, I think too often we don't focus on that piece of the folks who make it to the successes that they want in their life. We don't focus on the entire village and the entire set of circumstances that had to come together to make it possible for that. And an organization like Generation Hope is doing that work. And I feel like we've expressed the gratitude so much. And this is gratitude for, like, we're in New York, you're serving in a completely different space, but knowing that there are young people out there that have the resources that they need to thrive is just, the smile is hurting my cheeks at this point. It's hurting my cheeks at this point. And I think the perfect pivot here is, can you speak to the young people who are in this very situation, or either in high school or in college, and they are standing over that pregnancy test and are filled with fear, which is what all I can imagine is the feeling in that moment. The young ladies who are being pregnant, the young men who are who we need to be a part of that child's life. What would you say to them? What advice would you give to them? And where would you send them to go look for help and support, if they're in DC, but then also if in the wider US context?
Yeah, I think one thing, that a message that is so necessary for any young person who is experiencing a pregnancy or who is expecting a child, is to know that you are worthy and you are deserving. That is something that you internalize as soon as you discover your pregnancy, that you are now bad. You are inherently bad. You are, everything that's wrong with, the world. I talk a little bit about it in Pregnant Girl, just this instant feeling. I went from being an honor roll student. I had just been accepted to all these different colleges. And even though I was academically strong and on this track, as soon as I got pregnant, I felt like I was undeserving of all of those things that I had worked towards. And the world will tell you that you are undeserving and unworthy. And so I think it's so important for any young person to know that regardless of the pregnancy test in front of you, you are still deserving. You are still worthy of everything that the world has to offer. And certainly college is for you, to know that that is for you, regardless of whether you're going to be parenting a child. And that's important to hold on to, because when that child does come into the world, you want to parent from a perspective of worthiness, right? That you and your child are worthy of everything that's in front of them, worthy of the school's resources, worthy of the conversation with the teacher and the scholarship and all of those things. So I think that's just really important to know and to hold on to. And it's critical for you and your child to move through the world with that sense of worthiness. I wish I could tell you there was one umbrella, shining star place to go for you as a parenting student or as a teen parent to get resources. I think there are a lot of different people in this ecosystem and different organizations that have different resources that can be beneficial. We at Generation Hope are keeping a kind of a listing of different resources, especially if you want to go to college, on our website. So we have some national resources, and we're looking at ways, how can we build that out a bit more? And so I would say, Googling, especially in your community colleges are a great place to start. Many community colleges, just by virtue of their mission, want to serve. They want to help all students succeed. And parenting students certainly should be a part of that, right? And so looking into your local community college, seeing if there are programs, specialized programs that are geared toward parenting students, but even if they're not specifically for parenting students, looking at things like investments in case management and counseling, resources like scholarships for students who are experiencing low income, any sort of really intentional supports to drive equity for students. Those are all really good signs for young people who may be experiencing a pregnancy, in terms of, is this an environment that cares about me and wants to see me succeed? Those are still really good things to look for. And I think at the K through 12 level, one of the things that we do at Generation Hope is we partner with high school programs that are really focused on helping teen moms and dads just finish high school. And so looking in your community, it may not be at the school you're currently at, but there might be another school in your community, in your school district, that does have specialized programming and supports for parenting students that you may want to look into, or advocating for those things at your current school. So there are some supports and champions at the K through 12 level as well. And then certainly at community colleges are a great place to start when it comes to higher ed.
Thank you. And I just wanted to name, before my dad pops into that next question, is I was looking for the gender neutral terms in my head, and I appreciate how you so eloquently brought that in. And so now I know it's parenting students experiencing pregnancy, things like that really help me, so that I know in the future I can use that. So everybody, tips, we're learning.
And it's, I guess what popped up in my mind is when you were talking about, that worthiness. I've been, talking and writing a lot lately about the idea of mattering, which, they completely coincides, and how it's so hard we're just going through such tough times. And I hate watching, the news and people beating people up on a subway and all of this, kind of foolishness. These things happen oftentimes because the people who are doing them feel like they don't matter. And people make, the decisions on how they're going to operate because so many people just feel like they don't matter. And I just look forward to school doing a better job. And when organizations like yourself infuse that in people, I hope that the teachers are listening and saying, oh, wow, you're getting that kind of help. It's people see that you matter. And so then those teachers, if they are not already, start to infuse that into, how they're operating in school. In terms of my next question, I did want to get, I don't think it's controversial, but I was looking through your Instagram, and I know you guys had the Oprah Daily post, and you said, to end teen pregnancy, we need to stop punishing teen moms. And I guess a part of what was popping up for me as I was preparing for this interview is the idea that in some ways it feels like there's, some people make the decision to have a baby. It almost goes back to that mattering piece because they don't feel love in their life, and they feel like this baby's going to love them. And I think that there are some places where it's everything happens exactly the way it's supposed to happen. So, I had Eva, when I was 19, even though I didn't meet her till I was 25, whole nother story. But how do we, for the people who have not made the choice to have a child yet, make it so that they understand the gargantuan task that it is, and the additional weight that they add to what they have to do? And then I feel I'm conflicted in the question, only because it's how much I love her, you know what I mean, and how much I'm happy that I have her as a part of my life. But for the people who I think you get what I'm saying.
I got you.
I don't know exactly how to ask.
No, I got you. I think one thing that I would want to take a big step back, and I think that one of the biggest misconceptions about teen pregnancy is that it's a black and white issue. And in reality, it's a very complex issue with lots of shades of gray. And so I would, the percentage of young people who deliberately have a child is very, very small. The majority of teen pregnancies come from not having access to birth control, adequate birth control, come from not having information. We have seen so many reasons that young people experience a pregnancy that have nothing to do with an actual deliberate choice. And even if we're looking at those young people who say made a deliberate choice to have a baby, there is something missing in those young people's lives that caused them to have that desire, because to be so young and to want to have a child and the responsibility of parenting a child, there's often something missing for that young person. And so I think, I describe it as beads on a necklace. And we often look at teen parents and we see them, we think that the first bead to ever fall off the necklace, if you break a necklace, is the teen pregnancy. Like that's the first thing that's ever happened in that young person's life. And we define them by that. And then we determine how we're going to support them, if at all, because of that thing. But in reality, the beads began to fall a lot sooner for most young people in these situations, way before the pregnancy. So a great example, we have young people in our program who have grown up in foster care. We have young people in our program who have been molested as children. We have young people in our program who the first applicant to our program was 11 when she became pregnant and 12 when she gave birth. And in the vast majority of those situations, the partner or the person who is fathering that child is significantly older, right? So that's rape. So there are so many things that are going on in the lives of young people that I think one myth that we have to bust is that there's a good number of them that are making this deliberate choice. And again, even in that situation, there's something going on that we have to like peel back the onion a bit more.
Yeah.
And so, that's one of the reasons I wrote Pregnant Girl, was to help people to understand the complexities of teen pregnancy. And we haven't even talked about poverty being one of the big drivers of teen pregnancy. We talk about pregnancy causing teen pregnancy causing poverty, but it's the other way around. Poverty causes teen pregnancy. So really, I think that's a big thing. But I think for young people who are in that place of there's something missing, so therefore I want a child. I think helping to figure out for those young people what is missing in their life, what is the void that is causing them to say, this is something that I want. And I think if we are able to have those authentic conversations with young people, we can get to what is going on. Like fathers in our program, we have talked to Black fathers in particular who have felt like they won't live beyond a certain age. And therefore, there's a desire to have a child to leave something of themselves in this world.
Yeah.
Like that is a really difficult place to be in as a young person. And so how do we have conversations that get to that root cause, that fear, which is real, and figuring that out? And how do we address that before we get to, the teen pregnancy?
Thank you for sharing that. I felt my level, not that I didn't have compassion for people who made this decision before, but
Sure.
I felt it grow, and it you just opened my eyes to I knew the things, but I didn't know the things. So,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
A major focus of our organization is student voice, right? And when we're having a conversation about teen pregnancy and young folks getting pregnant, at an age where, like I'm 24, and if I looked at a pregnancy test right now and it said positive,
I ain't ready to be no grandfather.
And so to think about all of the emotions that come with becoming pregnant at an age younger than that I'm assuming is an extraordinary weight that young people are holding on them. And so what questions do you ask and do you want to ask to young people who are living in poverty, which is putting them in this situation where they are more likely than other populations of people to become pregnant at a young age? What questions do you want to ask those young people to get a better insight into how we can serve them better?
I mean, I think a really important question, and these are young people who have not yet experienced a teen pregnancy, I'm thinking. So I think one question that many folks working in youth development and education, in nonprofits, are trying to figure out, what do you need, right? What do you need to thrive? What do you need to be successful in school? What are you missing? What are those things that could really be game changing for you? I think that's like the golden question that policymakers, educators, activists, researchers are trying to figure out. And we're often not asking young people, we're not asking students. And I think if we could get to that, then it would be so helpful in terms of making sure that more students are actually succeeding.
How do we help them get to that? Because I think it's a phenomenal question, and we ask lots of questions of students, but I don't know if I ever said the simple question of just, what do you need? And I think it comes from the place of, in some ways it's, people don't know what they don't know. So it's sometimes people don't know exactly what they need. So is it here you go, and how do we help them to navigate that question?
Yeah, it's interesting. It reminds me. So we not only do direct service work with young people, young parents in our program, but we also do national work to advocate for systemic change for this population. And one of the things that we've done in last year, we launched a policy and advocacy agenda for Generation Hope with federal and local policy priorities. And we wanted that to be student driven. We didn't want to just sit around a table and decide, here are the things that should be important to this population. We did a series of listening sessions with student parents in our program and across the country. And of course, we couldn't necessarily, to your point, Jamal, say, what are the biggest policy hurdles for you? Because like when I was a young mom in college, I would have been like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And things like WIC and food stamps and Head Start, I didn't realize that those were policies, right? I didn't understand that. So what we said to them was, what are your biggest hurdles? Like, what's getting in the way for you? What is hard on a daily basis for you when it comes to going to college and parenting? And we were able to get from those conversations things like, well, I can't afford childcare and I can't find it, or I am having to drive, an hour and a half just to get to campus every day. And I don't have a reliable car and I have to borrow my mom's car, or I can't afford groceries and textbooks for class. So we were able to derive from those kinds of conversations and those questions. Well, we're talking about universal pre-K and affordable childcare from a policy standpoint, or we're talking about the importance of the child tax credit in terms of connecting the financial dots for these students, or how do we make free college a reality, right? So those weren't things that they could necessarily say, like, here are the policies that would change things for me. But we were able to say, like, what is difficult for you each day? What are you missing? What makes it hard? And from those conversations, we were able to then connect the dots and say, that's how that translates to actual policies that we can champion.
I love it. Yeah. Oh man, this has just been so good. And I think that it has inspired me to have some conversations with my young people. I'm hoping it's inspiring others, and this becomes an exponential conversation that's happening all over the country with folks. We've got people all over the country listening to this podcast. And so it is our hope that those candid conversations that need to happen begin happening because they started here, and then all of the levels that need to happen to ensure that it continues with all the young people that we serve. And so how
To that point, I don't want to leave that because I know what the next thing you're going to ask, but to that point, is there a Operation Hope New York, Operation Hope, Operation Hope Atlanta? Like it seems like you alluded to something earlier about sometimes people starting a nonprofit and then just slapping the label of somebody else, but in this particular situation, I for somebody who's passionate about this, it seems like you got a system that works. You know what I'm saying? Broke don't fix it. Like is there a way to kind of get this going on, in additional places? Are there plans for that you want to share?
Yeah. Yeah. So, ever since I started Generation Hope, we've been really fortunate to have some national media attention. And the number one question we get is, when are you coming to my community? This is an issue here, whether it's Mississippi or California or New York. And we wanted to make sure that we were fully established in the DC area before we really looked to expand. We are now in our expansion process. So we are in the process now of identifying the next city that we'll expand to for our scholar program, which is our signature program at Generation Hope, where we'll be able to serve more teen parents on the ground in college in a new location. So it's really exciting. I can't tell you which location it will be because then I'll get in trouble with my board and my staff. But what I will tell you is it's been an amazing process of thinking about how we were able to be successful in DC and what we would be looking for in the next community. And it's just been an honor to connect with stakeholders in these different locales and to just talk to them about what's happening there with teen parents and the enthusiasm that people have had about the possibility of Generation Hope coming to their community has really been just wonderful and overwhelming. But by July 2023, we will be operating in an additional city outside of DC.
Wow. Awesome.
And I promise this is my last question. I promise this is my last one. I want this to keep going, but last one. With the program currently, is there any kind of rites of passage kind of part where the folks who go through and get out come back and are a part of mentoring and being a part of making sure that the growth and development is sustainable because they got help and now they want to come do the same?
Yes, there is. I feel like I don't know, it's something ingrained in you as a young parent when you are walking across that graduation stage, much like I experienced. Like when I graduated from college, I just had this overwhelming feeling like I have to make sure that other young people in this situation can do this. And we see that with our alums. They cross the stage and they're like, what can I do? I want to mentor. And we have mentors. They come and mentor our current students. They volunteer. We provide like free childcare at all of our events. We'll often see our alums in our childcare rooms, playing with and reading to kids. As I mentioned, Joseph is a great example of an alum who's serving on our board of directors, but we also have other committees that our alums can come back and serve on. And then, we do a lot of advocacy work, like I said, where we're talking to media, we're talking to policymakers. Many of our alums say, hey, I want to go on that legislative visit with you. I want to talk to that reporter about what I experienced as a young parent in college. So they're very active. And I think there's this real sense of, I made it for a reason, and I want to reach back and make sure that other young parents can make it too.
Oh my goodness. So good. How do people connect with you and connect with your work, whether they are in the DC area or not, or our mystery area that's coming soon? How do you connect with what you all are doing and tap in to elevating, supporting financially, and in any other way folks can? How do they find you?
Yeah, well, first we would love for people to find us. This movement is going to require all of us, and so we invite you to come and join us. You can find us on our website, generationhope.org. We have a ton of information about volunteer opportunities, both virtual and in person. So if you're outside of the DC area, we still have virtual tutoring that you can do, and virtual career preparation support that you can do. So reviewing resumes and doing mock interviews. So we try to make it really easy and leverage your talents no matter where you are. You can also donate on our website. Every dollar counts and helps to make college a reality for these families. So we appreciate all of the support. You can also find us on social media. We're really active on Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook. So you can find Generation Hope at Support Gen Hope on IG and Twitter, and Support Generation Hope on Facebook, and just Generation Hope on LinkedIn. And then you can also find me. I'm pretty active on social media too, and it's just my full name, Nicole Lynn Lewis, at on IG and on Twitter, and we'd love to keep the conversation going there.
Absolutely, love it.
Love it, love it. So I said it was my last question, but this is actually not really a question. It's going to be more a statement, you know. So at the end of our podcast, we always allow our guests to become an interviewer. So if you have any questions for Eva or I, now's the time.
Yeah, so I think, you know, what an incredible opportunity to be on with a school board member and a teacher as we're talking about this topic. And so I guess it would be, as you're thinking about, you know, Black on Black education and your roles, what are your biggest takeaways in terms of teen parents and parenting students that you're taking back into your work?
That piece about worthiness. I think like the first thing the students see when they walk into my classroom is the 4 things to remember. And the first one is that you are brilliant. And so I want to take back and hone in that, like, you deserve to have everything that you want to have in life, but everything that you want to have in life comes with time, comes with like commitment, comes with goals, comes with like pressure, some like we're going to deal with all of those things. And so if being a parent is something that you like really, really want to do, let's think about how we get to do that fully and wholly by taking the time that we need to prepare for that. And then if we are in the scenario where we are pregnant and we have to figure out where we go from here, and I say we because my kids know, like, y'all go through it, I'm going through it, so let's come and figure it out together. Then like, just like you said, you're still worthy, but you're not going to have the option to give up on yourself. And I want young people to know that before a situation like this arrives, or after and during, that you're not going to have to do this alone, and that there are people out there that are going to help you. And at baseline, like you got to know that you're worthy. And so I really appreciated that piece of the conversation.
I love that.
So for me, I'm on the school board of the district that I actually went to, you know, middle and high school in. And when I was there were definitely, you know, some young ladies who had babies that I just, again, never would have considered any of this stuff from a support perspective. And now, as somebody who's on the board, I don't ever remember talking about this. So I don't know whether there are students, you know, in the school who need, you know, those additional supports. I do know that there are a lot of young people in other schools, you know, that outside of my board responsibilities, you know, related to Black on Black education, that we work with, and I'm not sure that they have, you know, these systems in place. So what this, you know, seems like to me is a social innovation that's time has come, that as when I talk to school leaders, a question that I'm going to add into those conversations is, you know, what do you do for your parenting population? Is that
yeah, there you go. Yes, I love it.
And yeah, I'm going to start to ask that question. And when they, you know, don't have a good answer, I'm going to make sure that they come and listen to this episode and Generation Hope.
I love that. I love that. I mean, that's the dream, is to have, you know, educators and champions who are saying, wait, are we looking at this through the lens of parenting students? And I always tell people too, because we do work with colleges and universities, helping them to create more family-friendly campuses. And, you know, sometimes we'll have pushback and people say, we don't have that problem here. You know, that's not an issue here, which, first of all, these students are not problems. That's the first thing we say. But then the second thing I remind people is that parenting status can change overnight. So, as you think about the supports that you have in place, it's not only for the students who are currently parenting, but it's for the students who will become parents. And so just being prepared for, the supports that you want to have in place to make sure they succeed.
Right. Because you should want them to graduate. You should want them to not, hit this, and this becomes an insurmountable, obstacle. To have that type
Yeah.
of service at the college, it's something that I guess folks should consider. Just almost from the spirit of how the college operates. It says that we care. It says that you matter. It says all of those things. So this has been fantastic. I don't even, did you want to mention something else?
No, I'm sitting here in gratitude that this is happening, because what would the world look like if my mother had services like this when she was carrying me? What would the world look like for my sister, who is doing the absolute best that she can with that gorgeous 2-year-old baby that she brought into the world? But what would the world look like if every parenting child or teen had the opportunity to receive the supports that they needed to be successful? And so it is an extreme thank you for the work that you do. Oh, shout out to y'all who are still at the end of this episode, because you are a winner. That was another episode of the Black on Black Education Podcast. Thank y'all for listening. Thank you for coming. And we will see y'all next week.